we have Senator Lankford.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for this hearing. Thanks to the witnesses for being here as well. I'm pleased that we're actually talking about this issue because to me, this is talking not about how can we fit hydrogen into an existing permitting structure, but how do we fix the permitting structure that we have? Because whether it is a pipeline or whether it is an electricity transmission lines or whatever it is that we're moving, permitting's been our big issue. We have wind power coming out of Wyoming that's started permitting in 2007 that still can't get out with the Transwest. We have in Massachusetts, you have electricity lines that can go get hydropower from Canada, except they can't actually go get that. In natural gas, our problem is not a shortage of natural gas in the country. It's a shortage of pipelines to actually be able to move it. Our price issues right now with natural gas is a pipeline capacity issue more than anything else. So my first concern is I don't want us to put hydrogen and say, good, we have such a good structure right now with permitting natural gas pipelines, let's do it like that. Because I think it's a terrible idea to say, let's do it like that, because that's not working very well right now. So my questions are all around how we do the permitting and how we fix this. Mr. Zimmerman, you actually tried to identify 5 areas, and I read through your notes on this. Establishing a lead agency to coordinate federal permitting. So you're not dealing with all kinds of different agencies that have different timelines, different rules for permitting. If you're going to do a pipeline, you got to know who's in charge, and everybody goes through that. That's a pretty reasonable thing. Allowing the lead agency to issue the permits, allow the other agencies to consult them in the process on it so that you kind of know who's the boss of the whole project. It's very reasonable. Establishing a timeline for a yes or no decision. You just mentioned before it takes 5 years to be able to get a permit now, to be able to do a natural gas pipeline. We can't have that. People aren't going to invest long-term in that. So having a decision time period, it seems reasonable. We had the Canadian leadership in here not long ago talking about mining and energy production in Canada. The timelines that they have set here seem to be endless with litigation. Theirs are very fixed, and so they're more predictable in the process. Establishing in statute that critical infrastructure projects are deemed in the public interest. I think it's very reasonable. We need more energy. Lots of areas around the center part of the country right now are dealing with electricity availability right now because we don't have enough energy, actually. And so we've got to be able to have that. And then revising the standard for judicial review to ensure infrastructure certificates and permits are approved unless the record lacks credible evidence to support a permit. Those are pretty reasonable changes on that. Is there anything that you want to add to that or highlight on that?
Thank you, Senator. I would just like to say that we are not trying to eliminate, sensible regulations. We are not trying to lower the environmental threshold for us building infrastructure. We are simply trying to address the gaps that exist in the legislation that have been leveraged to stymie development. So I appreciate you going through those.
If we don't have enough pipeline capacity now, making it even slower to be able to get more, or to say let's do hydrogen like we're doing natural gas, is not going to fix this. We're going to then bump our heads on why can't we get hydrogen pipelines in the ground? Why can't we actually get this going? So I do think we need to fix the whole permitting process when we address hydrogen to be able to make sure that we're actually able to get energy done in the process. Mr. Marshall, I do want to ask you about this as well. The timeline you would expect on a hydrogen transition, is this a couple of years or a couple of decades?
It's a couple decades, Senator. It's not overnight.
Okay.
I mean, I think that the goal is that by 2050, when you look at reports, about 20% of world's energy will come from hydrogen. And I think it's fair to say that it can be a linear from where we are today. So it's not an overnight transition.
So if it's for home use or commercial use, not just for fuel cells and such, are we talking about not just changing the pipes, moving that hydrogen, but also changing the pipes in the house, changing the appliances, changing orifice? Would all those things have to change as well?
I would say this, Senator. I think the world is different than that. If I was going to design the future for 2050, it would be more things like heat pumps using electricity. I think old infrastructure will need to be able to be changed. There's lots of work going on in the industry today, especially in Europe, where I'm seeing devices that are able to take, for example, dryers, which run on natural gas, to convert them to hydrogen. So I think the technology will come for that last mile. I would think more about what they're doing in Denmark, where you have over 60 gigawatts of wind power they're looking to put offshore, put a huge hydrogen pipeline dedicated just for transmission, not to homes, but to provide things like fueling for vehicles and other activities. I think that's the right, this is really for B2B to start. It's not B to home, and it'll eventually migrate to B to home as the technology advances.
But you assume at that point that it's repiping or changing from having a gas-powered whatever to be to electric power. So that is a pretty dramatic transition in homes. So we're not talking something soon on the home consumer side. That's a long way off.
Now, Senator, if you look at our business model, it is a B2B business model for the next decade.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hickenlooper.